The operations intensified quietly, without sirens or public drama. But on the ground, the impact was loud and unmistakable. Across parts of Benue and Nasarawa States, troops under the Joint Task Force, Operation WHIRL Stroke, OWPS, stepped up intelligence-driven patrols, moving deeper into forests, villages, and lonely roads where fear has too often ruled. And within a few days in early February 2026, the results began to show. From armed bandits neutralized, to criminal suspects arrested, to stolen cattle traced and recovered in pieces, the story that unfolded was one of tension, courage, fear, and a fragile hope slowly returning to troubled communities. Now, let us look at this clearly, step by step, just as it happened. On 3 February 2026, Ayamba Village in Katsina-Ala local government area of Benue State woke up like many rural communities have learned to wake up in recent years. Cautiously. The forests around the area are thick, quiet, and unpredictable. Farmers till their land with one eye on the bush. Parents send children out early, praying they return before dusk. That morning, credible intelligence reached Sector 1 troops of Operation WHIRL Stroke. The report was specific. Armed herders had been sighted in and around Ayamba Village. Not rumors, not village gossip. Clear, actionable information. Now, at this point, it is important to pause and think. How many times have communities whispered warnings that came too late? How many attacks started as, "we heard something," but no one acted fast enough? This time, the response was immediate. Troops mobilized swiftly, not alone, but alongside personnel of the Nigerian police force and operatives of the Benue State Civil Protection Guard. Vehicles moved with purpose, boots hit the dusty ground, radios crackled, the atmosphere changed. As the joint team entered Ayamba Village, tension hung in the air. Locals watched quietly from doorways and behind trees. No cheers, no panic, just silent hope that the soldiers had come in time. And then contact was made. A brief but intense engagement followed between the security forces and the armed elements. It did not drag on, but those moments mattered. Gunfire echoed, adrenaline surged. In the confusion and fear that comes with any armed confrontation, one armed bandit was neutralized. When the dust settled, troops recovered one AK-47 rifle, 3 rounds of 7.62 mm per 39 special ammunition, and 2 magazines from the scene. For the soldiers, it was another dangerous mission completed. For the villagers, it was something deeper, relief mixed with shock. Someone who had brought fear into their daily lives was gone, but the reality of violence had once again brushed close to home. How does a farming community recover emotionally after such moments? How do children sleep at night when gunshots become familiar sounds? Now, another angle to this issue emerged the very next day. On 4th February 2026, far from Ayamba, troops of Sector 2 OPWS, stationed at Patrol Base Ajaragu in Nasarawa State, received information from an unlikely but crucial source, a local hunter. This detail matters. Hunters know the land. They know unusual movement. They know when something does not feel right. Along the Asupe Ome Road in Obi local government area, the hunter had noticed suspicious activity. Armed robbers were allegedly lurking, watching, waiting. Now, at this point, ask yourself, how many crimes are prevented simply because someone chose to speak up? Acting promptly, the troops moved out, working directly with the hunter who provided the intelligence. The road itself is one of those stretches where danger hides easily. Trees on both sides, few houses, limited visibility, and long moments of silence. During the operation, one suspected armed robber was arrested. His name, Adam Paul, aged 34. An AK-47 rifle was recovered from him. But here's where the story gets deeper. During preliminary interrogation, Adam Paul revealed that he obtained the weapon from Tella Obu, a resident of Duduguru community in OBLGA. He also mentioned 2 other accomplices, John Amos and Elisha, also from Duduguru, who managed to flee the scene. They are currently at large. Now let us look at this clearly. This wasn't a random act. This was a network, a supply line, a reminder that armed crime often survives because weapons move quietly from one hand to another. What would have happened if that hunter had stayed silent? Who might have been attacked next on that lonely road? Efforts are ongoing to track down the fleeing suspects, but the arrest already sent a message. Someone is watching, and the security net is tightening. Still on 4 February 2026, another troubling situation unfolded. this time in Agagbe, Benue State. Troops of the COAS Intervention Battalion IX, deployed in the area, received a distress call from local residents. The report was disturbing. Some youths from Agagbe Community were mobilizing to rustle cattle. Cattle rustling is not just theft. For many rural families, cattle represent school fees, healthcare, weddings, survival, and dignity. Losing them can break a household. Responding swiftly, troops moved to the location. What they found was heartbreaking. Several dead cattle lay at different points, evidence of violence, greed, and desperation. Animals that had likely sustained families for years were gone in moments. But the operation did not end there. 3 suspects were arrested in connection with the incident. They were later handed over to the Nigeria police force in Naka for further investigation and prosecution. Let's pause and think about the emotional toll here. Imagine waking up to find your livestock slaughtered. Imagine explaining to your children why their future plans might have to wait. Community members were shaken, angry, and relieved all at once. Angry at the loss, relieved that the perpetrators did not escape completely. Inside a building, butchered meat, and a wider problem. The story did not end there. On 5 February 2026, troops deployed at Forward Operating Base FOB Agagbe received another piece of credible intelligence. This time, it was about youths actively butchering rustled cattle meat inside a residential building within Agagbe Community. Now, at this point, the issue takes an even darker turn. This was not just theft in the open bush. This was organized criminal activity happening inside the community, behind walls, among neighbors. Then, troops moved in. Inside the building, 2 suspects were apprehended, caught in possession of mutilated and butchered meat believed to have come from rustled cattle. The scene was grim. Blood-stained surfaces, cut meat, the unmistakable evidence of crime. Preliminary investigations revealed that the suspects were allegedly involved in cattle rustling activities within the general area, a crime that has continued to threaten livelihoods and undermine peace in rural Benue communities. The suspects were taken into custody for investigation and possible prosecution in line with the law. Now let us ask the hard questions. How does a community protect itself when crime begins to hide in plain sight? What pressures push young people into these acts, and how do we stop the cycle before it destroys both victims and perpetrators? Following these operations, the Force Commander of Operation WHIRL STROKE, Major General Moses Gara, addressed the situation with calm authority. He commended the troops for their resilience, vigilance, and aggressive posture in denying criminals freedom of action. According to him, the successes recorded align directly with the directive of the Military High Command to scale up aggressive fighting patrols and strengthen intelligence-driven operations. But he did not stop at praise. Major General Gara charged the troops to sustain the momentum, maintain strong fighting efficiency, and remain relentless in deterring and neutralizing criminal elements across the joint operations area. Importantly, he also expressed appreciation to local communities and other security agencies for their support and cooperation, a reminder that security is not built by soldiers alone. From this point, we need to understand the wider implications. These incidents are not isolated. They are symptoms of deeper challenges: unemployment, weapon proliferation, rural insecurity, and breakdowns in trust. When bandits roam forests, when armed robbers stalk roads, when cattle rustling becomes routine, communities begin to lose faith. But operations like these also show something else. When intelligence flows, when communities speak, and when security forces act decisively, crime loses space to breathe. Yet, the question remains, how do we sustain this? How do we ensure that hunters, farmers, traders, and youths see security agencies as partners, not distant forces? In Ayamba, residents spoke in hushed tones after the operation. Some expressed gratitude, others worried about retaliation. Mothers held their children tighter that night. Along the Asupe Ome Road, transporters moved with a bit more confidence, knowing one armed robber was off the road. In Agagbe, anger mixed with shame as cattle rustling suspects were arrested within the community itself. Elders whispered about lost values. Youth leaders talked about the need for guidance and opportunity. And across these places, one emotion stood out: cautious hope. Hope that security operations would not fade. hope that criminals would think twice, and hope that communities could heal. Security is not just about arrests and weapons recovered. It is about trust, cooperation, and early warning. It is about choosing to speak up before violence erupts. It is about communities refusing to protect criminals even when they are familiar faces. So the questions return to all of us. If you see something unusual, will you report it? If a neighbor is drifting into crime, will you intervene early? If security forces respond, will you support them with information? The recent operations under Operation WHIRL STROKE show that when everyone plays their part, progress is possible. Fragile, yes, but real. And as troops continue their patrols through forests, villages, and roads, one message stands clear. Peace is a shared responsibility, and silence is no longer an option. The story is still unfolding. The momentum must be sustained, and the hope is that with continued cooperation, communities in Benue and Nasarawa will one day speak of these days as the turning point, when fear began to loosen its grip.